Hey y'all, this is your help video for quiz 3.03, and this quiz is all about vertical angles. So just a quick reminder, vertical angles are pairs of opposite angles made by intersecting line. If two angles are vertical angles, then they are congruent. That is our vertical angle theorem. So we're going to practice that theorem today, but we're also going to use it in proofs later on, so make sure that you know that vertical angle theorem. So here, angle X is congruent to X and Y is congruent to Y. Alright, so here's the first one. It says angles A and B are vertical angles, and it says the measure of angle A is X and the measure of angle B is 4X minus 30. What is the measure of angle A? So because we know they're vertical angles, we know that they have to be equal. So I'm going to take the measure of angle A and set it equal to the measure of angle B. And then I'm going to solve my equation. I'm going to go ahead and try to get my x's on this side, so I'm going to subtract 4x from each side. A positive 4x and a negative 4x is going to cancel. I can bring my negative 30 straight down. And then don't forget there's a 1 in front of this x. So 1x minus 4x would be negative 3x. And then from here, you want to get the x by itself. Since we don't see an operation there, it's understood to be multiplication. And the opposite of multiplication is division. So we would divide each side by negative 3. And x would equal 10. Now the question said, what is the measure of angle A? So we need to go back and substitute that in for the measure of angle A. But the awesome thing about this problem is you just substitute in x and that's it. So the measure of angle A is 10 degrees. Alright, here's another one. C and D are vertical angles. So because it tells us that they're vertical angles, we already know that the measures have to be equal. They have to be congruent. So since the measure of angle C is this, and the measure of angle D is this, we're just going to put those two equal to each other. And then we're going to solve. Now again, I'm going to move my x's over to this side. You don't have to. You could do it the other way. But I'm going to go ahead and get rid of 1x by subtracting it from each side. That would make this cancel. I would bring my negative 30 straight down. Negative 2x minus 1x is negative 3x. And I'm going to bring my plus 90 straight down. Alright, my goal is to get the x by itself, to isolate this x. So now I need to get rid of this positive 90. The opposite of plus 90 is to subtract 90. That would cancel. Bring my negative 3x straight down. And then negative 30 minus 90, or plus negative 90, is negative 120. Divide each side by negative 3. And x will now be by itself. So I got that x equals 40, but be really careful. It doesn't say what is x, it says what is the measure of angle D. So we need to go back up here and we need to use our substitution method to plug it in. So instead of saying x minus 30, I'm going to substitute in 40 for x. So 40 minus 30 is 10 degrees. So the measure of angle D is 10 degrees. That would be our final answer. Alright, so another one just like it. It says angle E and angle F are vertical angles. Because we know they're vertical angles, we know their measurements are equal. Those two angles have to be congruent. So we're going to go ahead and set 5x plus 10 equal to 7x minus 12. And then we're going to solve. I'm going to minus 7x's from each side. 5x minus 7x is negative 2x. Bring the 10 straight down and bring the negative 12 straight down. I'm going to minus 10 from each side because I'm trying to get that x by itself. And then I'm going to divide each side by negative 2. And x equals 11. This time the question actually says what is the value of x, so we don't have to substitute it back in. We are done. That's the answer to our question. Alright, so on this next one, it doesn't tell us that they're vertical angles, but we know they're vertical angles because of the picture, right? Vertical angles are the opposite angles when two lines intersect. So we know that this angle has to be equal to that angle. So let's go ahead and set them equal. All right, so the first one we have 2 times x plus 10. I'm going to go ahead and distribute that. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 10 is 20. And then I'm going to get all my x's on one side. So I'm going to subtract 3x from each side. 2x minus 3x is negative 1x. I'll just bring everything else straight down. Trying to isolate that x, so I'm going to have to get rid of 20. The opposite of adding 20 is subtracting 20. So I'm going to bring my negative 1x straight down. Negative 30 minus 20 is negative 50. Divide each side by negative 1. And x equals 50. And the question here, let's double check, says what is the value of x? So we don't have to substitute it back in. We are done. Our answer is x equals 50. Last one. What is the measure of angle K in L? Let me go ahead and highlight that angle for us. K in L. So we want to figure out the measure of that angle. But to start off with, we know that these two angles are vertical angles, so we can set them equal to each other. 5x plus 2 has to equal 3 times x plus 14. So again, we get to solve some more equations. We got to get rid of our parentheses first, so we're going to go ahead and distribute that. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 14 is something. 42, I hope. And I'm just going to bring this side straight down. Now I'm going to get all my x's on one side, so I'm going to get rid of 3x. The opposite would be to subtract it from each side. I'm going to bring this down, and I'm going to bring the other straight down. Then I would need to minus 2 from each side. And then divide by 2. And x equals 20. Now let's be really careful that we answer the question. It doesn't say what is x, it says what is the measure of angle K in L. So we're going to go over here to this yellow angle and we're going to substitute it in. So instead of writing x, we're going to put 20. We're substituting that 20 in for x. And then we would have 3 times 34, which is 102 degrees. Alright, so just remember that vertical angles are congruent. You got a lot of algebra in this quiz. And don't forget to answer the actual question. If it asks for x, give it x. If it asks for the measure of an angle, make sure you substitute it back in. Good luck!